Wait for the red light. Great, we're all good. So good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lizzie Johnson and I'm a client director here at Decoded. So I'm responsible for managing the relationships between our clients and ourselves to ensure that they're meeting strategic objectives that we've set collectively. Essentially, my role this morning is just to familiarise yourself with the programme that your direct report is about to be participating in, just to make sure that you're happy with the program, all of the things that it entails, and gives you the opportunity to ask any questions before the session starts. So just letting somebody else in. Oh, two more people. Everyone is joining. Great.
Hi, apologies, I'm late.
Welcome. No problem at all. Brill. So I was just saying, my name's Lizzie. I'm a client director here at Decoded, and I work really closely with our various clients to ensure that the programs we're delivering are meeting strategic objectives. And the purpose of this morning's overview, which is being recorded, is just to familiarise yourself with the program. We are launching with the learners on the 24th. But we wanted to meet you in advance just to allow for any queries or concerns to be raised earlier on. And so that as soon as your direct report comes from their launch, hopefully you know all of the background and you can have really fruitful and productive conversations. Morning, welcome along. So hopefully all of you have a direct report who you're aware is taking part in the Data Academy Apprenticeship Programme with us over the next 15 months, followed by their endpoint assessment. And apprenticeships, if you're not familiar with them or you've not supported someone through an apprenticeship before, can seem quite complex. They are regulated by the government, as we'll hear, so there are a range of compliance hoops that we need to jump through. So it will feel a little bit like information overload probably this morning, but I'm on hand via email or via phones and can answer any questions after today if there's anything that crops up. So just a couple of housekeeping points. Please feel free to pop things in the chat if you'd like to, or use the raise hand feature. And there will be Q&A time at the end, but if there's anything that crops up as we go through, then let me know. As I mentioned, we're recording, just so we can share it around as a recap afterwards. And it should probably take us about 30 minutes to run through the key points this morning, and then there'll be time for questions, but I don't anticipate it taking the full hour. Is everyone okay? Everyone set? Yeah. Bro, thank you. Okay, so just a bit of an overview at the program as a whole. So as I've mentioned, it's a 15-month qualification. And the thing about apprenticeships is that they're designed to embed data skills across the business at scale. And they involve getting kind of hands-on straight away, which is really fantastic. It's not just a course that you do online and then have some skills and you don't really know how to apply them. There's a real emphasis on application. The programme is funded by the government's apprenticeship levy, and it represents around a £15,000 investment in your direct report, which obviously isn't coming from your business unit, it's coming from this levy pot that your employer pays into. And it's a use it or lose it pot for them. They need to use it on reskilling, otherwise it returns to the Treasury. No one wants that to happen. So it's a really great way to make the most of the funds that are there. So as I've already mentioned, the programme is integrated and applied. So after every workshop, and we'll talk about this, there should be opportunities for the learners to take that back to their desks and think about making an impact in their teams, which is really special and the real kind of added bonus of an apprenticeship as opposed to another course. The learners will be doing interactive workshops delivered virtually, plus self-guided online content. And then they'll also have one-to-one coaching from their learner success coach. And that's somebody who will help support them throughout their journey, just to make sure that they're all on track and they've got everything they need. And their coach can support them with anything from a coding challenge to some pastoral care. And we also have a more generic help centre, which is powered by Zendesk, which is a one-stop shop for all queries that learners might have. And we aim to turn around inquiries really quickly, and learners will be invited to register in parallel alongside their launch for the help centre. So we're really excited that this cohort is what we call an open cohort. So we actually have two organisations joining us. So we have learners joining us from UBS and learners who are joining us from AstraZeneca. So quite different backgrounds, but it's a really great way to work together and to share. But just something to say in advance is that we are aware that different organisations, different teams have different data sharing policies. So that's a really important thing to emphasise from the very start. We don't expect any learners to share any data that they're unable to share or are uncomfortable with sharing. So what about the learning experience then for the next 15 months? So all learners, and you will also have had a link to this, will have been set up with a program called Bud, which is our learner management system. And they'll have another platform, which they probably haven't received an invite to yet, which is called Canvas. And essentially Canvas is the place where they do all of their activities. It's a really great site for hosting all of that and making that super user friendly. And Bud kind of tracks the more compliance side of things as they work towards the endpoint assessment and as we ensure we're compliant with all of the relevant rules that govern us. And as a line manager, you'll also be given access to Bud to check your direct reports progress. When you go on their page, effectively you'll see some bars at the top, which hopefully will be green. And what you're really looking for is to make sure that the green bar that shows progress through the program is equal to the green bar that shows how much work your learners completed, because that's a really good immediate visual indication that everything is going well. But you might hear them talk about those platforms, so that's why we introduced them here. One of the first things that you'll do as a line manager is to join a kickoff call with your direct report and their coach. And that's a 45-minute to 1 hour call booked within the first 2 weeks of the learner launch. So the last couple of weeks of October in this case. And it's useful just to highlight what this call will include, because I think it's good to start thinking about what you as a line manager would also like to get out of that call, as well as how you best support the learner. So the first thing to do is to do introductions. And what I always say is it's a really great opportunity to give a bit of a background to your team, to the Decoded team. Because if we know how a learner's role fits in, what your team is overall trying to achieve, for example, then we can really support with the extra support that we provide the learner. So if, for example, I'm going to use a non-business specific example for anyone here. But if you were a retailer and you were very interested in, you worked in e-commerce and you wanted to use customer data to improve experience in e-commerce, then it's really great for us to know that from the start, because we can shape the support that we give to each learner. The other purpose of the kickoff call is to establish goals and set expectations for the learner. And again, that's from your side as well as from our side. And we discuss how you can support throughout the programme, including on your normal regular one-to-ones away from us. The learners have completed what's called a skills scan. And basically that was trying to identify what their baseline knowledge is and to determine suitable coaching style. So we'll discuss all of that together. And then we'll also clarify any expectations on the work that they need to produce. So really, if there's anything that you would really like to see the benefits of from this course within your team, it's a great opportunity to bring that up. Are there efficiencies that you've been trying to make? Are there any key priorities, that kind of thing? And that context is really useful for us. Just to what's the right word? So that you know that it will be on the learners to organise this call. So there's nothing that you need to do. Hopefully they'll liaise with you and make sure it's organised at a time that is mutually convenient for everyone. So this is the entire 15 months on a page. So as you can see, there's 4 units. And each module then has a workshop. So some of the units have 3, some of the units have 2 modules within them. And each unit on here, as you can see, has a set duration. So from experience, we do find that the most successful learners are those that keep up with the pace of the programme and tackle each unit's work during its allocated weeks. However, we obviously recognise that work happens, life happens, sometimes your direct report might slip behind, but what's really important is that we have ongoing communication, because the sooner we become aware of anything impacting progress, the sooner we can step in and support and make sure that the learners can effectively catch up. So the Decoded team are on hand to help and lend support. And if that might be that they're out of the office and they can't contact us to let us know that they won't meet deadlines, we'd really appreciate it if you, as their line manager, would be able to jump in and just drop the coach a message and let them know what's going on. So each module starts with an online introduction to the theory, tools, and techniques of the module to prepare for the workshop. And it might be made up of online pre-reading, videos, podcasts, other interactive activities and quizzes. And it's accessed again via Canvas, as we've mentioned. And the deadline for the preparatory work is usually the day before the scheduled workshop. The workshop itself is led by our teachers. They all take place virtually, and they're either half day or full day. And the learners should already have all of their invites for the rest of the year, or for the rest of their program, in fact. So they should be able to block that in the diary. Workshops are at set times, but just to say, if there's any reason they can't attend, for example, they're on annual leave or they have another pressing commitment, there is recap material. It's not actually a direct recording of the workshop that they missed in every case, just because we use breakout rooms quite a lot. And so those recordings aren't necessarily the best way to recap on the session, but there's always other videos and resources that are available to them. We have online practice that follows the workshop, and that's an opportunity for the learners to implement their skills through some of the data that we give them. And then some units have hackathons, and we get super positive feedback about these, but they're full day collaborative workshops. And basically they work together on a project. And that's kind of a way of thinking like a data analyst, basically. So how do they solve that problem? How do they work with different team members? How do they face that challenge? At the end of each module, there's a quiz, and it can be taken as many times as a learner likes. But basically, this isn't part of the final assessment or grade. It's to understand how well a learner has picked up a particular topic, and then focus the revision or support from their coach on an area they particularly struggled with. It's, it might be that they need more support, or it might be that they're doing absolutely fantastically, and then we can put stretch material in place as well. And then throughout the program, learners need to complete independent data analysis, and there's various different peer support options for them. Yeah, there's not a huge amount to say about this slide, but here is some of the technologies that they'll be using. So essentially transitioning from Excel at the moment to being able to code in Python, and using some of these tools to do that, as well as how to do SQL queries. This is just a bit of a flavour of what's to come next. The other thing that you'll need to be involved in throughout the programme is progress reviews, and they take place between the apprentice, their coach, and you as their line manager. So they take place roughly every 12 weeks, and they're there to discuss and record details around overall progress, well-being, EPA readiness, and application of key skills. It's really important for you to engage with them and attend to them, because you need to be able to kind of see that they are gaining those knowledge, skills, and behaviours. So just if you weren't aware already, the government and the ESFA and the Institute for Apprenticeships, they set out what the data analyst qualification must contain, and then what the learners will undertake is Decoded's interpretation of that. But we need to make sure that they are demonstrating those knowledge, skills, and behaviours as set out in the Institute for Apprenticeships standard. So it's a bit like a curriculum that we have to follow. Yeah, so it's really important that you understand that as well. Outside of progress reviews, it's important to remain engaged with your direct report as they progress through the programme, and you should keep in regular contact with them to understand what they're working on and how it can be applied. And at the end of the programme, the apprentice will have what's called the endpoint assessment. There'll be so much more information provided about this throughout, but probably worth mentioning here, just because it's useful to know what this consists of. So firstly, learners will submit a portfolio of work-based evidence of applied learning that they collect throughout the programme to demonstrate their ability to meet certain knowledge, skills, and behaviours as outlined in the standard, as I've mentioned. This portfolio basically is the suite of project work that they will have been doing throughout. It's really quite difficult to envisage right now unless you've managed a learner before, but some of the projects they do are really, really incisive, really fascinating, and really do drive real business impact. But you're also agreeing to provide the learners with opportunities to do those projects. So again, it's worth thinking about, is there anything that we as a team have been wanting to do for ages and we've not had the space or the creativity to do? And that's something that the learners can help with while they're on programme. Then you as managers must sign off on a learner's readiness for EPA. So basically saying that you feel confident that your direct report has been completing their apprenticeship to a sufficient level. And it's important to note that this structure isn't set by Decoded, it's set by the apprenticeships institution. We're essentially following this process to deliver the final part of the apprenticeship and to secure the overall qualification. So as I've mentioned, at the end, learners will have this hugely impactful portfolio of data work. They'll also receive a Credly badge, which they can promote on their social media. So for example, on their LinkedIn pages, and they'll have their data analyst level 4 certification, which is the nationally recognized qualification. So just coming on to time commitment, this is one of the biggest challenges for both learners and for teams. So essentially, um, the learners must undertake to complete a minimum of 6 contracted working hours per week on their apprenticeship. And we call this time off the job training, which can be quite confusing because in reality it's taken within their work time. But this needs to be an average of 6 hours across the duration of the program. Some weeks it might be more, some weeks it might be less, but they just need to have that across the program. And it is a government funding requirement that they do this during work hours, not after hours or on weekends. And if they're in breach of that rule, then funding can be withdrawn. Just to add, if learners work shifts or perhaps a non-standard working pattern, then definitely bring that up with our coaches because it is something we'll track and keep an eye on. What we're trying to see is it's not being done kind of evenings and weekends, that kind of thing. Yeah, just let us know. And this time commitment is required to enter EPA and complete the programme. And also the other requirement is logging regular evidence every month to keep drawing down funding. We do make it really easy to log and track, and learners will be shown how to do that on their launch. So they'll be able to evidence the time spent working on the apprenticeship on BUD. So what counts as off-the-job training? Well, pretty much everything. So it's quite easy to rack up the hours. So the workshops are 3.5 hours long and the hackathons are a day long. There's all of the applied learning via BUD, which is tracked. There's anything they're doing on at their desk, which is relating to project work for the apprenticeship. The calls and progress reviews also count. And then there's also what we call naturally occurring OTJ, which is more jargon for you there. And that's anything that's broadly related to their increased knowledge of data analysis. So it could be things like job shadowing, it could be doing a presentation to the team, it could be going on a seminar, that kind of thing. And just from our experience, it can be tricky to manage this time. But learners do generally find that being able to kind of block off a half day or a whole day is the best way to make sure they don't get diverted by other tasks. I think that when they try to do an hour here and an hour there from busy teams, it can be quite easy to be distracted. So yeah, it's a really important conversation to have now at the point of enrolment, not once we've launched. So that's why we like to do that up front. So in summary, your support as a line manager is crucial. So you'll be agreeing to provide opportunities for the learners to apply new skills to real work. You'll be authorising that time commitment, so that minimum of 6 hours per week off the job. You'll be joining a kickoff call, as I've already mentioned, and you'll also be joining progress review calls, roughly every 12 weeks. So what's the learner doing now? All of the learners have registered on BUD. They have to do various things to highlight that they are eligible, which are all listed on here. And there will also be various other things for you to sign, so confirming prior learning and signing commitment statements. And I think most of you have already done that, but it's just to flag. You might have seen on the what's called the funding statement, there is a question for you, which is, do you agree to pay X amount of money towards your learner going on this course? And just to clarify, that's actually just saying that you are happy on behalf of your organisation to allocate a part of your levy to us as Decoded, the training provider. So it's not actually kind of a budgetary decision from your perspective. And then next, as I mentioned, on the 24th, we've got our launch event. And we'll be running that launch day, providing learners with an overview, and they attend, and then they'll be booking in their kickoff call. And kind of before we know it, they'll be getting stuck straight into the various different workshops. So starting with programming for data analysis, we start learning Python from day one. So my background is actually in modern languages, and I can definitely tell you the sooner you start learning and practicing a language, the more quickly it sinks in. So that's why we do Python from day one, before moving into data manipulation and data visualization. Yeah, it really starts to pick up pace and then continues for the next 15 months. So that was all of the kind of information I wanted to cover off. Bit of a whistle-stop tour. But I just wondered, does anyone have any questions or queries about the program at all?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Yeah, no problem.
At the start, you mentioned about the sort of data privacy piece. Is that put on the student and the company to check that we're not sharing something, or will the coaches check what they're using first?
So it will be on the student, and we do actually have a module where we look at policies and legislation in more detail as well, further through. So things like if your learner works with customer data, for example, we cover off all of those relevant legislations. I would say that the coach wouldn't necessarily know if the learner had shared something they shouldn't have done. So if you work in a team where the data is particularly sensitive, then just a conversation in advance with the learner is probably the best way to go.
Okay.
We're happy to receive anything redacted as well.
Yeah. Okay. And then does the course run at sort of normal pace over the summer holidays and things like that when it gets a bit busier, or does that scale back at all?
Yes, it does. It runs at the
Yeah.
same pace across the summer holidays. But if any deadlines need to be adjusted due to annual leave, for example, or any business priorities, then just have a conversation with the coach and they can be readjusted. The challenge kind of comes when those conversations aren't had, and then we're chasing for things that are overdue when a learner is actually on annual leave or unwell or similar.
Yeah. Okay. And then for the hackathons, you mentioned about the full day workshops. Is that on top of the 6 hours a week, or does that get sort of averaged out?
It counts towards that 6 hours a week. So any week they've got a workshop in, they're already doing 3.5 hours. And any week they've got a hackathon in, that's more or less taking their 6 hours.
All right. Okay. Yeah. And then the last one is just you've mentioned sort of level 4 today. I've got another person that's going to do a level 3. Is that a separate call, or is that the same drill?
Yeah, it's broadly the same from an apprenticeship governance perspective, but different in terms of the actual curriculum. But any apprenticeship will have the 6 hours a week requirement and the requirement to do that within working time, etc.
Yeah. But will there be another call for the person that I've got doing a level 3?
There will. Are you from AstraZeneca?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
I can tell you when that is, actually.
Okay. All right.
It is. Oh, that's a good question. I actually can't see it in my diary, but it will be me again.
Okay. All right. That's fine. All right. That was it for me. Thanks.
Perfect. Any other questions? And feel free to use the chat functionality if you'd like to, or come off mute.
Yeah, quick question, actually. A number of the emails I've received with the links I can't access because of workplace restrictions. Is it possible to change the email address that's on file there with a personal one?
Yes, it is. I will also speak to my colleague Maddie. I believe that we have a list. We have the kind of base link that you can whitelist, so then you'll be able to continue to receiving emails. So I can pop that across to you.
Okay, great.
But if you wanted to send me an alternative email, then I can follow up on that as well.
All right. Yeah. So I was trying to like fill out these surveys and everything, but yeah, none of it was working. I'm from UBS, by the way, so I'm assuming a lot of the other people from UBS have a similar issue.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can confirm I have exactly the same issue.
Yeah, it's a common issue because your IT restrictions are quite significant. If you drop, I've just put my email in the chat. If you drop me an email with an alternative contact, and I will revert with a the kind of base link for Bud that you can get whitelisted, and then hopefully one of those ways will get you what you need to sign.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, like I say, if there's anything that pops up later, then do drop me an email, not a problem at all. And we really look forward to welcoming the learners this time next week. So have a lovely rest of your day, and thank you so much for taking the time to join.
Thanks for your time.
Great, thanks for the run through.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.